Starting now.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, and welcome everybody. This is the Business Communications Workshop done with Optimum Networking and 8x8. I'd like to welcome everybody for coming on online here and sharing their afternoon with us. We understand how critical and how busy people's time is. We'd like to honor that and give you something of value here. My name is Jonathan DeFez. I'm with Optimum Networking. I'll start things off here and then transition to our engineers for a little bit more in-depth demo and Q&A. But let's first start and jump into the agenda. So the first thing I'm going to do is give a quick overview. Several of you are our clients, so you already know who we are. Some of you are still learning about us, so we'll spend just a few minutes on Optimum Networking. Then I have some questions for you, and I noticed everybody was muted when they came on. At this stage, I'd like you to unmute and answer some of these questions because we want this as interactive as possible, and the more we get to know kind of where you're at, the more we can tailor this the presentation and the demo to give you even more value. So when that comes up, feel free to unmute and kind of let us know where you're at in your business communication journey. Then I'm going to go over a brief history and state of current affairs where business communication is. This is not meant to be in depth. It's more of just a brief overview. It may spark some questions, and if you have some questions, feel free to ask me and or the engineers during the demo. Again, we want this to be as interactive as possible. And then we will launch straight into that demo after I've introduced the engineers. We'll wrap up with summaries and questions. Any questions from anybody right off the bat? I know most people are muted, but feel free to stop me, ask any questions before we get started. Is everybody seeing the agenda? Let me see some thumbs up, make sure that I'm on track here. Excellent. Okay. So Optimum Networking. We were established in 1995. That means that today was, or not today, but this year was our 25th anniversary. Our mission is that we exist to help our clients leverage technology for their success. And as I say in these workshops, business communication is another example of that, where being able to communicate with internally and with our clients and our vendors out there is what drives our business. So any area where IT can interact with that, we want to help maximize it and make it the most efficient for our clients. One of our services, our core services, is a user support through our help desk. We also maintain servers, networks, backups, cybersecurity with our tools and our proactive planning and strategic planning. So that's who we are as Optimum Networking. So this is the point where I'd like you to unmute if possible. Answer some of these questions for us. I'd like to know out there from everybody, what is your current communication platform? What are you using? What are things that work for you, and what are the things that you would like to see differently? Second question, how well, if at all, does it integrate with other systems like email, chat? Can you tell people's presence based on the phone system, whether they're on or offline or on or off the phone? How does it integrate with things like we're doing right now, video conferencing? How does it integrate with your mobile devices and integrate that way? Also, do people have concerns about the security of their communication systems? I think that's something that we often forget. We think about security breaches in regards of emails and data on our systems, but who's listening in? What if somebody were able to get into your communication systems, and how secure is that in that regard? And last but not least, we know that there are dispersed workplaces out there, whether we like it or want to do that or not. Is your communication, your phone systems, able to adapt and serve folks that are forced to work remotely, or do you have a remote workforce that really requires this anyway? So I'm going to go ahead and ask you guys to unmute and kind of get some feedback from our folks today. And if nobody says, I'm going to call on people. So
I can go. This is Tim with BCR.
Well, I'll go first then, Jonathan.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Well, I'm a sole proprietor, so I don't have an extensive network, but I use cell phone and my desktop for communications with people. I serve a bunch of clients who, from what I've seen, have very disparate and inconsistent networking tools and communication tools. And many of them not much more sophisticated than what I use when I'm by myself. So I think the opportunity to integrate for many people would be very valuable, but most of them are a long way from doing that at this point that I've seen.
Thank you, Michael. Those are very good points, and something I think you will be able to see. And I know that you, as a sole proprietor, you still work with companies, and you know, could be in the position of make recommendations as well. Sure. I'm going to ask Kira and Veronica. I know that whenever I call, or oftentimes I call, it rings Kira's cell phone, and I know you guys are having to work remotely, and you have locations in other states. So can you kind of give a quick overview on how that's working for you, and possibly some areas where you feel like things can get better?
Yeah, we use Comcast to transfer the lines to my cell phone when we're working remote, and that seems to work fine. We here in the office communicate a lot through email and just like texting, and we do have that HIPAA component, which we've tried a couple different times. Veronica, refresh my memory. There is something that we use with our emails to make things compliant, give us that extra security, but honestly, I don't think we use it as much as we should be.
Sure. Thank you very much, Kira. Paul, I'm calling on you now. I know that you guys have an actual legacy phone system that you're still using. How's that been, and how's that been in terms of having to transition to now folks working from home?
Thanks for calling on me. We are in the process, as you know, transitioning away from our Comcast phone system. It is okay. As you know, we're an essential business, so there are times when we locate employees, and we have someone in the office at all times. We have persons reach out to employees on their cell phones when they're in the office. So that's how we've been working on it, but eventually we'll move away from Comcast and just go straight to the Voip System, as we have been discussing, because it's just more efficient to have that instead of having people calling in and then we just sending to a cell phone. We just want to be able to reach for employees wherever they are at the time. So that's kind of where we're at. Obviously, we communicate internally through Teams, and that's really great for us.
So, Paul, you're a little bit choppy, but I think we got the gist of it, so I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm going to call on Lauren now. Lauren, I know you guys are rapidly expanding. You guys are adding and growing quite a bit. I would assume scalability is kind of important for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And currently we use Nextiva, and we just, to my knowledge, we just started Nextiva a couple of months ago. I am new to the organization, just 3 weeks in. So still learning all of the things that Nextiva can do. It does not integrate with any of our systems, but it will, well, not that I know of, but there is a way that you can look through the Nextiva app and see if someone is on or offline. I also haven't gotten that many phone calls yet. And so, but there is an app that I can use on my mobile device, but 9 times out of 10, I answer on my computer.
Great. Thanks for that. Thanks for that feedback. And last but not least, Tim, I know you guys have some questions around that. I know Bill has worked with you to some degree on that as well, correct?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're hearing you okay.
Okay. Sorry, my mic wasn't working earlier. Yeah, so we are for our legacy phone system. We're running Mitel, which is integrated and does show presence and forwarding to our cell phones with us working remotely, etc. We've really made the transition over to Microsoft Teams in the last year, kind of with the pandemic. We were just starting to do it when it all hit. And so we primarily actually use Teams for everything right now, both for internal communication and our webinars, team meetings, etc. The big thing that we're running into is just integrating the voice service, which I think is kind of why we're here today, right? To kind of tie voice and Teams together and come up with one integrated solution, I think is really what we'd like to see.
Excellent. Yeah, and that really is something we'll be able to put on display today. So I'm glad we're here for that. So thanks, everybody. I'm done calling everybody, so everybody can go back on mute and relax and enjoy your Grubhub, I hope. So quickly, just in terms of a little bit of history of how the past was, if everybody analog old legacy phone systems, I was way back in the day, 10, 15 years ago, selling some of this or selling against it. And I would run into people that had the same phone system for 20 years plus. It's like that, it's like the refrigerator. Nowadays, refrigerators last like 5 or 6 years. Back then, they would last forever. But they really just became refrigerators just didn't work as they should. But the phone systems need you need to add phones. You need to have people who know how to program them. They just essentially became out of date. And obviously, they just did not integrate with other business communication systems or technology. Then came around Voip systems. So Voip systems were still, for the most part, premise-based. There were some hybrid features to them, and they were much more feature-rich, to be sure. They were in-house and accessible like the old phone systems. They also switched over to using bandwidth instead of traditional voice lines, so there was some cost savings for companies that way. But ultimately, they were costly. They required a large upfront installation and hardware cost. They also took annual cost to keep those up to date from a software standpoint. And they were still relying on somebody who could program them or a vendor to maintain them. So there were some disadvantages as well. And while they were integrated, they never got a full integration with things like Microsoft 365, to be sure. So that kind of brings us up to the future and beyond here, where we're at right now and what we're looking at is groups like 8x8 that are fully integrated, hosted voice over IP platforms. There are other ones out there, and I'll let Bill and Chris talk a little bit more about this. But the reason why they caught Optimum's attention is that they're the only one that truly were able to integrate fully with Microsoft 365. And again, I'm not gonna talk much more than they can talk up themselves as well. But the more I learn, the more I see that they've got a lot of positive options for businesses and our clients, including you can do it a monthly expense, or you can and have that be operational, or you can do a more annual plan and make that more of an operational expense. Again, I mentioned about it being fully integrated. The support is ongoing, and the word that's been taught to me is future-proof. What does that mean? If you notice my last two slides, there was an end date to each of these other legacy and premise voice systems, because ultimately that hardware is going to retire or go away. Hosted systems are just going to continue to get better, and you don't have to pay for that improvement or have to maintain that. You just are the benefit from it. So that's what future-proof means to me. I'm sure you'll hear that term a few more times, but that's really the advantage of looking at something like this. So I'm going to go ahead now and introduce my the two engineers that are on the call. Bill Townsend, who many of you already know as our sales engineer here at Optimum Networking, and he is kind of integral in looking at new solutions for our clients. And Chris Hamlet is the 8x8 engineer that's going to be doing the demo here for us. So I'm gonna turn it over to Bill, so Bill can kind of give us a quick understanding of the vetting process that Optimum Networking went in with 8x8 and kind of introduce his role in that, and then he'll transition to Chris. So Bill, do you want to take it from here?
Sure. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. Good. Apologies for not being on camera. I'm having some bandwidth issues at my house today, so I wanted to make sure that the audio was crystal clear, and you guys don't need to see the face for radio, as I lovingly refer to it as. So yeah, as Jonathan said, we were looking at different partners. We were looking at, branding our own services, things of that nature, because there are a lot of companies out there that allow you to do that. But what we realized is that we wanted to be a partner with a company that deals very specifically in voice and not is going to rely on us to be the front line, back line of all things related to voice, video, and integrated services. So we started digging through the different providers in that area, and some of the reasons behind why we selected 8x8 as a key partner in this environment is the fact that they've got a global reach. So they're not just a US-based voice services company. They've got the ability to do worldwide calling. And case in point, they've got currently 15, and potentially they've already launched their 16th data center around the globe. They have 8 call centers that follow the sun. So if you've got a problem with your voice services, you're not relying on an 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, East Coast to West Coast support model. You actually have the ability 24/7 to call into a support center, and you're not relying on us to relay that to 8x8 for your support. So that's critical because voice is imperative. You don't need to worry about, is my voice service up or down, because it's an internet-based service. It can ring your computer, it can ring a phone on your desk if you actually like the little gray box on your desk, or it can ring an app on your cell phone. So you don't have to worry about, like what was discussed earlier, of going into the portal for Comcast to say, I need you to forward this number to that number for the next week, and then forget that Comcast is going to automatically revert that back to ringing your office number after that week. All of these things are built in and can simultaneously ring multiple different devices anywhere you are based on how it's set up. In addition to that, one of the key components is, disaster recovery. Within the 8x8 environment, they have a less than 30-second failover between their POPs, their points of presence, without an interruption to your call. So you don't have to worry about call dropping because the egress in the East Coast has gone offline while it seamlessly moves over to the egress in the West Coast. Jonathan, you got your Mitel up in the presentation. Yep, there we go.
I was just making sure I didn't need to get any calls. Sorry about that.
Gotcha. No worries. One of the other things is that they have the ability to do dynamic routing depending on where you're calling. So they will route it across their backbone and then drop out to the public switch network at the closest point to deliver that call. And that's actually one of their patented services that they have to make sure that you have the best possible voice service and quality available, much like that disaster recovery is also one of their patents. In addition, another patent that they've done is IP agnostic access. So it's an SLA for uptime, voice, and quality over the public and private internet. Doesn't matter where you're going, they route it wherever you're going, and they make sure that it's end-to-end quality. They currently have in excess of 103 patents that they own, which means other providers that are doing similar things very likely are leveraging one of the patents that 8x8 has designed from soup to nuts. In addition to that, their uptime, so again, that whole idea of being available, their uptime is a 99.99% network SLA with over 1 million business users and over 46,000 global deployments around the world. So these are some of the things and some of the reasons why when we did our homework, we said, who would we potentially use if we were going to be converting to a VoIP solution? Now, the whole reason why we haven't converted ourselves is we currently have a contract that has another year or year and a half into it, and financially it would be a little burdensome to try to break that contract the way it is. We're still evaluating it because not only do they do voice services, but we have a help desk. So they also have call center capabilities. So for those companies that have to take calls and route them between agents and things of that nature, they have a full-blown call center that can be deployed as well. That is what our support desk is. And we're using, kind of call center light, if you will. where there's ring groups and hunt groups, and that's built into the 8x8 platform. But it's so much more that can be done with 8x8. So we're looking at that growth capability within the environment as well, so that we have all of those capabilities built in. And Jonathan had kind of touched on security. Security is a huge, 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 not just a buzzword, but a reality in today's environment, especially since everybody has gone into this work from home, remote work type capability. So it doesn't matter where I'm at, I can make sure that, you know, this voice system is PCI compliant. So if you're doing credit card transactions, their data centers, their solutions are PCI compliant. If you were doing business in the UK or anywhere in the EU, the European Union, they have their GDPR readiness project in flight, and they are going to have that capability so that they meet all of those global protections for the EU deployed. ISO 27001 and 9001 certified, so all their documentation, their processes, their procedures have all been vetted and verified by an international body. Not just somebody saying, yep, we can do that, but they've had a third party come in and actually walk through from end to end. How do you do DR? How do you do failover? How do you do deployment? How do you do this? How do you do that? Everything that they do has been certified through ISO 27001 and ISO 9001. And if any of you are in manufacturing, you understand the importance of having those types of certifications in your environment. So they don't make things, but they still follow those same processes and services to guarantee reliability to the end user. So any questions on what I've touched on thus far? No? Okay. So one of the other things that we looked at is we wanted to make sure that a partner wasn't just in one industry vertical. So for instance, we didn't want a voice solution that only catered to the retail environment because of the call centers. 8x8 has over 1 million global business users, like I said, and it's across retail, manufacturing, services, healthcare, technology, media and entertainment. So some of their partners are Condé Nast, Salesforce, Oracle, Raytheon, Aflac, you know, Home Depot, I believe is on here. Nope, Office Depot, sorry. You know, so you've got all of these big name companies that we all do business with on a day in and day out business purpose that are using 8x8 for their voice services. So if you were to call Restoration Hardware to make an order, you're likely going into the call center that's being back-ended by 8x8. And, you know, again, that's part of the reason why we went with 8x8 is we went to somebody who's servicing not small mom and pop shops necessarily, but delivers enterprise class services regardless of the size company you are. So they treat the small business the same as they treat the big business. And to us, that was huge, huge, huge and critical.
That's appreciate it, Bill. I think that's a great segue into Chris. And probably Chris is thinking myself, couldn't say it better myself, but Chris, I'm going to go ahead and stop screen sharing and let you pick it up from there. You can kind of give your background demo, your background, and then start the demo. Would that work?
Sounds good. Thanks, Jonathan.
You bet.
All right. So, hey, everybody. I am Chris. I am a sales engineer here at 8x8, and it's my job to get to show you how this stuff works. And I am going to share my screen and my video so you can see me, because I tend to make little gestures. It's more fun when we can see each other. So I'm sharing a couple of screens right now. One is my cell phone, my iPhone. One is the screen with our desktop application. And I just kind of wanted to give you a glimpse of like how this looks on various different devices that you're using on. And this is the 8x8 client itself. I know that when you guys are looking at kind of Teams integration, I'm going to show you that a little bit later as well. But I kind of want to show you the product. Let you see how that works and how it works between devices, and then give you a chance to ask any questions. So first of all, I'm going to start on the mobile because I've already got it up. You can see like on my mobile device, I just had an icon for 8x8 work. That's what we call this app. And this is a it's fully featured app, just like what you would get on the desktop. So I've got all my messages up first. I tend to use messaging a whole lot more than I actually pick up the phone and call people, which is funny since we work in a business that mainly supports voice phone calls. But I love the fact that I can have the same messages on both my mobile device and the desktop app. So I can go in here and send any of the same messages with anybody in there. So I can go in here and send a message and say hello and send that message. And that will go in to Rachel, who got that message as well. And you can see the message just carries over here. So pretty nice, like the ability that you can work from either your desktop or your mobile. And in today's time, it's really important that people be able to do their work wherever they are using whatever device they've got. So I really love that ability. It looks like we've got a chat in here. And oh, hey, Caitlin. So I also tend to look at the chat while I'm talking. So I'm completely cool with that. I'm pretty informal when it comes to this stuff. So if you guys have any questions or comments or want to see anything in particular, feel free to either unmute and ask me or put something in the chat, and I will certainly oblige. So we've got the messaging functionality. I can also make my phone calls right from my mobile app, and this goes over my business number, which is nice, so I don't have to give up my cell phone when I'm talking to clients. And anybody who works with the public knows that if someone in the public needs to talk to you and they have your cell phone number, they're never going to call your business number again because it's an easy way to get in touch with you. But with 8x8, you can use your business number wherever you are, however you want. We've even included the ability to go in and send text messages. So I'm going to do this from my desktop. So I am going to just go in and type in my cell phone number, and I don't have anything in here right now, but I can send a SMS text message right here. In here, I'm going to just shrink this down a little bit so we can see this. And I already got that message on my cell phone. But we've also added the ability to send pictures right from your business number. So this is an MMS or SMS with attachment. And so now, if you work with the client and they need to send you a picture of something that they're working on or that you need to see, you can get that picture right on your mobile device, or they can get a picture from you right on their mobile device, and you can get it in your app, whether you're at your desktop or on your mobile. And that's a really nice little feature. There's so many industries out there where people need to do more than just text or do more than just phone call, but all they've got is their cell phone. And now as a business operator or someone working in a business, you can interact with them and take care of what they need without giving up your mobile number. And if you're anybody like me, I don't work 24/7. Bill and Jonathan, I treat them like I work 24/7. I take care of whatever they need, but sometimes I need to turn this stuff off. And so the benefit of having a work app like this is that I can go in and I can either turn on some business hours so that at 5 o'clock it stops giving me notifications, which is a blessing in and of itself, or I can just go in and log out. And suddenly those messages, I'll still get them when I log back in tomorrow, but they're no longer going to be popping up on my phone. So sometimes I like to take vacation so I can, or I need to put my head down and get stuff done. So I can mute notifications for 4 hours, get the stuff done that I need to get done, and then 4 hours later it'll pop back up. So I really enjoy some of these features, both the ability to communicate and the ability to control when I get to communicate. As an employee, to me, that's really amazing. We also have the ability, we're a phone service, so we can make and receive phone calls in here. So this is a fully featured soft phone, so I can see my missed calls. We have voicemails, and we have voicemail transcription turned on by default for all of our accounts. So you can see in here, like there's a voicemail someone left me. Like I get to see that transcription right here without having to listen to that message. And it's the same on my cell phone. If I go into the app right here, I can read that message and see what that was said without ever having to look at that. We also do that same voicemail transcription through email. So we will send you an email with the transcription in that as well. So if you guys are like Teams users or Outlook users, we're not telling you you have to change anything. We'll send that voicemail message along with the transcription right to wherever you are. Does anybody have any questions about any of that? Does that sound like some stuff that you guys could see using in your business? To me, like I use this stuff a lot more than I ever imagined. So that's some of the phone calls and the messaging capabilities we've got. Of course, like in our messaging, I can create like chat rooms. And so like this is a chat room for all of my friends in this demo environment that I've set up. And anybody in my organization can come in and see this chat room because it's public. So they can come in, they can join it. If they are not looking at it right now, I can send them like a notification saying, hey, pay attention or something. And it'll ding their device, like whether they're using the desktop app or the mobile app, and it'll give them a little notification. So that's very nice. We also have the ability to create private rooms. And these private rooms are set up so that only the people that I've invited to that room can like see the messages or even see that it exists even. So not everybody in my organization is going to be able to see this room. But as you can see, I can share documents. I can share files. I can even put emojis in there. And like people think I'm crazy because I love emojis, but like that's really how I communicate with some of my coworkers. And you can see like even that document that I have in there is available on my mobile device. So it's cross-platform document sharing built right into the messaging, which is a very nice thing to have. So those are some of the things I love. Now 8x8 does a whole lot of stuff. We do phone calls, we do messaging, we also do meetings. So like I could say, hey, Joey's apartment, let's meet now. So I can hit this meet now button and it's going to turn that chat room conversation into a meeting directly from there. And I can join that meeting right from there. You guys can probably see me right there. And I love the fact that I can just escalate any kind of chat situation right into a meeting in there. So we've got that. We also, because we're a phone company as well, we can escalate phone calls between each other into meetings as well. And I can do the same thing on my mobile device. So I can start a meeting here and start that meeting right from here. And I am now in a meeting and I can even invite other people from my team, or I can invite people that are outside of my meeting right from my mobile device. So I love like the fact that I can have these experiences across whatever device I'm using, but B, like I can include people that are in my office, we're using the same system, or people who are not. So I've got that. A handy little feature that we also have, and you'll see it here on the mobile, and I'll show you what that experience looks like on the computer version, is that I have an itinerary over here of my upcoming meetings. So if I'm going from one meeting to the next, or if I'm walking my dog and I need to join a meeting, I can just come in here to this meeting and hit that meeting and join it right from my mobile device. And then when I get back into the office, I can just go in and join that same meeting right from the office. So it's a really like easy way to get from one meeting to the other for that. And then when we're in meetings, like as the meeting that you're in right now, we have functions like chat. If I wanted to speak, I could raise my hand. You see it puts a little indicator, and I'll do that here in our meeting so you can all see the notification you get. So it probably just gave you a notification that I wanted to speak. And then I can lower my hand as well, and it takes that notification away. I like that. I tend to use that a lot because I'm pretty much the talker in most of my meetings. So it's a nice little feature to have. One little feature that is really like, I think is extraordinary, and some of the other people are kind of copying us or gleaning from our success in this is the ability to turn on closed captioning and transcribe the meeting. So as I start talking in this meeting, you're going to see words start to come across the screen, and it's instantly transcribing the audio into closed captioning on the screen. And this is really good in situations where you might have a bad internet connection, but you still want to hear what everybody else is saying. You might have a bad Bluetooth headset, but you can still follow along. You might have issues hearing in general, and this helps keep you included in the meeting. But what I love the most about this function is that it saves that transcription with the meeting. And so I can go into my past meetings and look at these meetings, and let me go in here. Any of these that I have like a recording icon will probably have, it'll have, that one has the chat. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to break through and show you in the meeting that we're on right now. So if I go into my recent meetings and I go into this meeting that we've got here, you can see this transcription, and then you can see all of the words that we have in this meeting, like as transcribed by the person who was speaking it. And to me, like, that is the best notes that you could ever have in a meeting. So one of my favorite things in the whole world, I mean, and you know, I'm on stage per se whenever I'm in these meetings, and I'm having to do a lot of the talking. I don't have the like capability sometimes to take notes, but there are no better notes than the words of what was actually said. So hands down, one of my favorite things. We've had it for a couple of months, and I'm starting to see some of the other meetings providers get out there with this. But we've got it. We've had it for a while, and one of my favorite things. So that's a couple of the things about the meeting. Another thing that's really important is the security of the meeting. So I can go in and, like, let me show you these security options. I can enable the lobby for my meeting, and that way when people come to the meeting, they're not automatically let in. I have to let them into the meeting, which is really nice. I can add a passcode, which only allows the people who have the passcode into the meeting. It's pretty standard. But we also have end-to-end encryption. And when I turn on end-to-end encryption, that means that it is fully encrypted all the way from one computer to the other, and only the people who have that encryption key can decrypt that meeting. And so not even 8x8, even though it's going over our servers, it's going through our network, we cannot decrypt that call. It is highly classified, well, not highly classified, but it's appropriate for highly classified applications because we are using military grade encryption to secure that call. And so suddenly we are able to do things like HIPAA compliant video meetings, or meetings where you can, like, we're being enabled in certain medical or psychiatric environments where you really need something where people can talk in confidence. So we can do that, and not even 8x8 as a company can decrypt that information. So some pretty cool features there. I'll finish out with this. Like, our meeting software can hold up to 100 meetings. 100 people in a meeting. So 100 participants, they can all log in like you guys are. They can share video, they can share their screen, all from the Chrome browser. But when we hit that 100 mark, that's a pretty firm, like, limit to the people in there. Sometimes we want to hold events that, like, thousands of people might want to come to. So we have a solution built right into every seat where we can live stream this meeting to YouTube. And depending on my Google security settings, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people can watch that YouTube live stream right from whatever device they're on. So suddenly you can do like internal town hall meetings. You can have public events with your customers, wherever you think. Like, when there's a whole bunch of people who will just be listening and watching, they're not really like sharing a screen anyway. They can even interact with chat on YouTube if they want to. So pretty advanced technology within our meetings. So that's a whole lot. I'm going to stop and check and make sure. Are you guys Do you guys have any questions about any of this stuff that I'm going through? Do you think any of this could be applicable in any of the stuff that you guys work through?
So it's Michael.
Hi, Michael.
How does this sit beside or contrast, conflict with something like Microsoft Teams? I know it's built around voice, but you've got conferencing in there, you've got chat. How does it work beside that, or how does it conflict there?
So that is a perfect segue, and I would send you $1 if I was close enough to send you $1, Michael. So
you sent him a free lunch, so
you know. Lunch, so thank you very much for that.
So Chris, and then Chris, let's tag on to that same question. You were talking about the chat rooms being public and private. Are those public and private only within the 8x8 ecosystem? And if you're doing a Teams integration, how does that differ?
So that is a those chat rooms are in the 8x8 ecosystem. So you can SMS text message people outside of 8x8. And for now, that's limited to 1-to-1, or you can do MMS 1-to-1. We are working on a solution that will bring in multiple people to chat like outside of the organization. But there's some legal requirements behind that, like because you get into marketing and group texting, and the FCC hates when companies start using that to like spam people. So we're doing that very carefully. So you won't see that immediately from us, but we're working on it. So that's inside of our application. We have that group messaging, and it will work within the organization. So when we move to Teams, which I have up here on the side, our solution for Teams is to take the voice component of everything that we just talked through and put that into the Teams environment. So as a Teams user, you're still going to use Teams for your messaging with one another. You're going to still use Teams for the video conferencing with one another. So we can't supplant that because Microsoft doesn't give us access into that portion. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the 8x8 voice, so the phone call portion of everything, and put that into Teams. And so you see my Teams up here. I'm going to just lower the 8x8 stuff. And inside of this Teams environment, there's absolutely nothing in here that says 8x8 because there's no software that Teams users have to install to use 8x8 voice. There's absolutely nothing that an end user is going to have to do any different once they enable Teams, except maybe restart Teams to get the call panel in here. But when you enable 8x8 voice into Microsoft Teams, all of a sudden you'll have this dial a number panel here, and you'll have phone contacts in here that are not inside of the Teams environment. So I can go in here and call my cell phone number right from here, and it's going to go out through the network. So I'm going to just hang up on that because I don't want to get the echo chamber on here. But it's just as easy as anything else. So you just go in here and you make a call. So any of these times where you are implementing Teams, you're probably doing it to get one application for your users because you don't want to deal with all the IT work or the training necessary to install all of these multiple applications. So we worked very hard to shoehorn our voice solution into the Teams experience that you guys are installing into your employees' work environments, whether they're working on a desktop, laptop, or a mobile device. It's going to be the same Teams that they're used to with really no adjustment except for the ability to make a call inside of that. And so like I said, it only is the voice call portion of everything. So we're not changing the way that Teams does meetings. We're not changing the way that Teams does messaging. And mainly because Microsoft doesn't give us access to change that. But we also don't want to upend the training factor or the IT work factor of having to run through yet another deployment. That becomes work in of itself.
So Chris, one question to kind of follow on that. If they were to have the Teams integration and host a meeting, is 8x8 the dial-in conferencing solution so that people that only want to participate via voice only in those type solutions, or is that an add-on that has to be considered?
That is a Microsoft product. So whenever you're hosting a meeting inside of Teams, that is a Microsoft product. Of course, if you wanted to host it on 8x8 and it comes with the seat level that you have, you'll have access to do that through the browser, just like what you guys are doing right now. So you can host 8x8 meetings alongside of Teams, but anything that is inside of this Microsoft Teams experience that is not the voice audio is Microsoft.
Okay.
So we're not changing anything about that.
So if I were to schedule a meeting inside of Teams and I had the 8x8 voice integration so that you call, my phone number and Teams rings for me, if I were to host a meeting inside of Teams, would the audio conferencing portion be separate inside of Teams, as in that would be Microsoft's bridge number, not 8x8's bridge number?
Exactly, because we do not have access into any of the conferencing portions of that. Now, like if you gave people a dial-in number from 8x8, they could call into that dial-in number right from Teams, and that would be going over the 8x8. You can schedule conferences with 8x8 and have people dial in from Teams. But anytime you go into Teams and set up a meeting, like a video meeting or an audio meeting, like from the Teams environment, that's a Microsoft thing, and none of the other providers are going to be able to do that either, because Microsoft controls that ecosystem. There's very limited use case in like where a government entity requires like highly classified meetings that have to be secured several ways, that Microsoft will open up anything for anybody else to do anything, but that's the one use case for that. Thanks for those clarifying questions, Bill. So pretty simple though, like in all of our cases in talking to customers, when they're deploying Teams, they just wanted something to be simple. IT people are already stretched thin because of all the stuff that's going on right now. People working at home from their own networks, causing all kinds of issues. So IT people couldn't bear another lift of another hardware or software deployment, or it's going to take a couple months to do that. So this kind of implementation where 8x8 just connects with Microsoft through the cloud, it makes it really super easy for any like organization to just roll this out and say, hey, now you're going to be making your outbound calls or receiving your inbound calls through Teams. This also opens up things like contact center, like Bill was talking about earlier. So we do have our full contact center that does multi-channel, like chat, SMS, social media. We can route those voice interactions right into this Teams client as well. So it really truly becomes a soft phone for 8x8, just the Teams as it stands. But like, as Bill was alluding to earlier, like what happens when Teams has an issue and you can't log in? Like, and we've seen that. Microsoft has like any other company has some issues. We all go through them, but like if you have 8x8 voice and you can't log into Teams because they're having some kind of directory issue or anything, you could just open up the 8x8 app or open up the web version of the 8x8 app, which looks a lot like that, but it's just version that's available on the web. Log in and still make and receive those same phone calls that you were making and receiving when you could log into Teams, and then close it and keep going with Teams.
So Chris, this is Jonathan. It sounds like that almost gives you some redundancy built in.
It's like nobody wants things to go bad. Like nobody wants things to go down, but it's always good to have a backup plan if they do, right? So it's always good to have a quick, easy option that you don't have to go in and change anything to do that. So some other carriers rely on that cell phone, like to forward calls, and that's like logging into the portal, typing in your phone number and saving. There's a lot of steps to that. Ours, you just open up the app and log in and it's there. So it'll work concurrently. It's not something we like outright advertise, but I think it's a really good point, because if you're a business and your business surviving depends on you being able to communicate with your customers, then you're going to need to be able to have something that's going to work all the time. And so that's what we provide at 8x8. Microsoft has some good voice plans for companies that aren't like completely dependent on communications, but we think we add something there that puts a lot of like strength into that. And Teams is a great product. Like the Teams, like little ecosystem here is a really awesome thing. We've got our own and we love that too. But if you guys wanted to use Teams, we're going to make that work for you.
So to be sure, Chris, and we can wrap up with this. As I mentioned earlier, Optimum really does our best to find the right technology fit for our clients to drive their technology so that they can reach their goals. And we're a Microsoft shop, but we've experienced firsthand over the last few decades, Microsoft's attempts to integrate and become the essential single point phone system. They've certainly gotten a lot better and a lot closer in recent years. 5-10 years ago, we wouldn't recommend it for our clients. But 8x8's been doing this for a long time, a lot longer, and they got it right a lot sooner than Microsoft did. So you want to kind of wrap up by kind of giving us a quick history of 8x8 and kind of where you sit in the industry, and then we'll kind of move on and maybe see if there's any other questions and wrap up.
So 100%, and thanks for that, Jonathan. So 8x8 actually got its start in 1987. And if you walked through a mall in the 80s, you probably walked past a phone store that had these little video phones that had little chips on them, little screens on them where you can make video calls through regular phone lines. We made the chips that went into those phones, and that's where we got our name, 8x8, 8 pixel by 8 pixel compression. So we got our start there. Around the turn of the millennium, we changed over to be a unified communications company for business because, as you would imagine, video phones didn't really take off. People just got webcams and hooked it up to their internet. So we pivoted. And so for the last 20 years, we've been building on business communications, starting out with UCaaS and then moving. And UCaaS is just your voice, your messaging, in some points, your video messaging, and then into contact center. And now we're doing application, back-end communication systems work. So you can plug in 8x8 into your app that you already have built. So we have spearheaded this industry for 20 years, and we've been on the forefront of all of this change. Even back from the 80s, we have been leading this change. And so through the last 9 years, we've been recognized by Gartner, who is an industry leader in going out and scoping out these different providers. For the last 9 years, we've been in the Magic Quadrant as a leader for unified communications, and for the last 6 for contact center. So we're not just fly by night. We are a communications company. Microsoft's great at software. They're great at building Microsoft Office. I use it every day. My company makes us use Google, but I choose Microsoft for that. But they're still getting their wings when it comes to voice and communication. So that's where we come in. We try to bring that experience with us, that rock solid network we've got, and make that experience better for everybody.
Great. I'm going to grab the screen back if that's okay. Is everybody seeing my conclusion now? I'll take silence as yes.
Yeah, it's up.
Thank you. So as Bill and Chris were able to demonstrate, we've got full integration with Microsoft 365. Hopefully the future-proof concept came through a little bit more as well. Last but not least, ideal resource really for the diverse, secure, productive workforces that we're faced with today and going into the future. So if you're on this call and if you have an interest in this, Bill and I are happy to set up a business communication review. We'll reach out for that as well, and we just look forward to working with you guys on this. Last but not least, well, actually, let me let's take a. I know we're almost out of time, but I do want to take a pause, a serious pause for any, because Bill and Chris are both great resources. I just want to make sure you guys have the opportunity to ask them any questions you might have. whether it be about Teams integration, whether it has to do with security or features or the technology behind it. Go ahead and let me know if you have any questions. They'll also be on for a few minutes afterwards, so people can stay on and ask questions too. Sometimes that's a little less intimidating. But last but not least, I'm going to go ahead and do a plug for the next Optimum Networking workshop, educational series workshop. We will be doing it on cybersecurity, making sure that your company is prepared for that. I know a lot of our Optimum clients are, and you guys have gone onto our premium or pro security plans, but there's a lot to it. So you're all welcome to join that. It will be 2 weeks from today, on the 17th, and I'll be sending out an invite for that. So, but you guys can save the date on your calendar right now. So for those of you that need to leave at 1:30, we're right on. If for those of you want to stay on a little bit and ask the engineers questions, I'm sure that they'll happy to do that. But thank you all for your time, and really appreciate you coming out today, and hopefully you got some value here.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Tim. I do have a quick question, follow-up, if you would.
Hey, Tim.
So I just wanted to make sure I heard correctly. You talked about it for a little bit, but we're pretty much exclusively Teams right now, and then parallel with Mitel. And our biggest struggle right now is we want to set up a meeting in Teams. We have not paid for all of the Microsoft Voice capability because it's pretty expensive when you get per user on top of our Mitel solution that we've already integrated. And so we'll set up a Microsoft Teams, and if somebody is on the road and doesn't want to install the Teams app or can't, they cannot call into that meeting. And so, we can set up a Mitel conference number, but then it's not inside of the Teams meeting. And so what I'm hearing is you're kind of in the same boat, where even with the 8x8 Teams integration, we still can't use that voice function on a Microsoft team without paying for the Microsoft phone numbers. Is that correctly summarized, or did I miss something?
So Tim, every provider is in that same boat. Microsoft will not open up that section of Teams to allow us providers to put our own conferencing stuff in there, because they want you to pay for that licensing.
Right.
So we only have access into the parts of Teams where Microsoft will let us have access, and so we're kind of all in that boat. So right. And we do have external, kind of like I guess what you have right now, conferencing available, but it wouldn't be inside of the Teams app either.
Right. So the only way to do it would be to go completely to 8x8 and do the whole meeting in the 8x8 feature, which, so then to talk about that a little bit, it looks, based on this meeting, it can only run in Chrome, and there's no standalone application or anything outside of Chrome that really works well, whether it's Edge or otherwise.
So it will work in Edge. It'll work in Safari and Firefox in limited capacity, because they have some different implementations of WebRTC. And we do have a standalone downloadable app that you can download and open up meetings as well. So there's many different ways that you can get into a meeting for 8x8. And then you can even launch and host meetings through a browser without having to install the software as well. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. So it's not very limited as far as just using Chrome. You can have a bunch of different ways.
Okay.
Yeah, so Tim, this is Bill. I'm using the full-blown client on my machine, just because I've got an 8x8 demo account as well, where I can make actual phone calls with it. So I tend to leverage the full-blown client experience as opposed to the web integration piece. So I can join the meeting through the client, place calls, etc.
Right.
And it's the convenience factor for me. And then just kind of as an add-on, and Chris, keep me honest here, my understanding is there's a coming update that will allow you to use just the web portal to make and receive phone calls as well. So you won't actually need to install a full-blown client if you had full voice services.
And it's like it's already out kind of in the wild. I shared the wrong thing here. So I am actually using that right now. So this is the web version of this. And so it is fully fledged. Like I can make and receive phone calls right in this web-based version. And I can do my meetings and everything without even having software in there. So
if you were at grandma's house for, Thanksgiving and you didn't want to take your work laptop with you, you could just open the web browser and log into your 8x8 account and make and receive phone calls if you had to on the Friday after Thanksgiving.
Exactly.
Okay. I think that pretty much answered the two key questions I had. Thank you.
Well, Tim, we appreciate it. Thanks for coming on, and I'm sure Billy will be in touch, answer any more questions you might have.
Sounds good. Thanks
Appreciate
for everything. It was good.
Have a great rest of the day.
You too.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording.